February subjects not happening. On your on.
Maybe I can use the.
అక్కడ point చేయాలా?
If we have, we can leave now on. If we have something to start.
Yes, yes.
But if we have,
That is sleep source.
no, that's not what it is.
Go to that PowerPoint.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah. You take it one. Meanwhile, you do it. Yeah.
Okay, so this topic is about enterovirus A71, A68. So next slide. So why enterovirus A71? From enterovirus, you know that enter means gut. So the virus is it's one of the reemergent disease too. That's why we are going to discuss. Enterovirus is very common to the children's, which is also called hand, foot, and mouth disease. I mean, I know last year I came and my daughter came and my neighbor came to chit chat with my daughter, their kids. So she left. Next day, I saw my daughter's hand. There was like a pustules kind of, like all those rashes came out. Then the next day, she has a fever. She's not feeling well, not eating. I saw this is spread in the hand area as well as in the mouth. Then I suspected it's definitely hand and foot and mouth disease. It's very common in India. And then I asked my neighbors, hey, do you have that kind of thing? It is for the picture. Oh yeah, I had this. Then if we had this, why you came? Because the point is that it's very contagious. Even if you just shake hand, you got it. And it is very common. There is no vaccines, nothing there. So that's, but it's a very old disease. It's a picornavirus disease, which is a foot and mouth disease, which is very common in animals, cattle. It's the same family, and it has.
So, but for animals, they give vaccine, right? For
the vaccine is also not that potent. You know, people tried all kind of, including mRNA. Only vaccine work is live inactivated vaccines. Also the next slide I will go. What happened? They have a lot of serotypes.
Before the start of the rainy season, always we immunize the animals.
Yeah, so they have I think seven types, because I know I forgot how many. So they have seven types: A, O, C, SCO1, and SAT1, 2, 3 for animal FMD. And then each one has like 60, 40 serotypes. So it's a huge difference because the virus has a lot of mutation patterns. So many variants. And each, same like dengue, each one does not protect another. So every year in Indian government, do the serotyping. Oh, this one is a A22, or this one O13, O61. Then they took those viruses, grow those viruses, inactivate those viruses, and put this. So that's the trend is going on. There is no such any sophisticated or recombinant vaccine. People try to spend a lot of time on those separately.
But it doesn't cause, it just causes inconvenience, that's it, right? Like it will go on its own.
Well, that is mostly for the hand and foot and mouth disease. Yeah, it is inconvenient in the sense, yeah, it is not that lethal. You have seen, but you know they are off school, they cannot attend school, those things, right? You know, they off, and also you don't like your kids sick, right? Uh, so that's the thing, you know, and we don't know. There is not enough study done, like you know, if your kid is immunocompromised or you know they have some other disease or cancer or like that kind of symptoms, so it may flare up. So those are the studies that have not been done, you know. So that's why it is better to control cardio. So hand, foot, and mouth is very
Uncomfortable.
very
They hit
uncomfortable.
fever and they,
Right.
and they stop eating also.
Exactly.
Especially observed in
Because
animals.
if you have rashes inside, they cannot eat. You know, it is very irritating. The kid is restless, and I know my daughter is restless, cannot sleep well, cannot eat well, so those things. So, you know, and the point is like, in secondary bacterial infections, chances more prevalent at that point. So that's why it is. So next slide, please. So you can see, based on throughout the world, this is a map, like there are a lot of different cell types out there, like you know, EB, A71 is kind of everywhere. Africa, Asia, you know, Americas, Oceania, all those. Next slide, please. So you can see how many species there are, their genotypes, and then so see the genogroup and subgroups. So A, B, C, so many. So that's why it's same like FMD in animals, but the EB71, A71 is very frequent, and that's causing the major hand, foot, and mouth disease in children. And those are the species, so you know to remember this. Next slide, please. So the same thing, like you know, still cutting out. So the virus replication, it's a positive strand RNA virus. It's very easy. So if you know a positive strand, it does not need to be negative strand and to so positive strand easily and make the proteins. So that's is happening by endocytosis. It's going positive strand and making all those viral proteins as well as structural proteins. So P1, P2, P3. So those are the P1, P2, and P3. Those are actually non-structural proteins, and P1 is the structural proteins, BP1. So those are the subgroups. So, we can see inside the nucleus, the negative strand, positive strands give negative strand, and the negative strands makes more positive strand. So you have viral multiplications, and then capsid proteins. Those are happening in the endoplasmic reticulum, and the packaging happens in the Golgi apparatus, and the virus is released. Next slide. So you can see there are a lot of receptors are responsible to virus to bind the cells, and you can see like AIDS, GOG1. So EB71, you can see there are a lot of receptors. So heparin sulfate is a very common receptors in cells, but other cell types you can see. This is another crimin1 is the receptor, but some of them not there. So if you see the pathological changes happens, you can see all the organs actually it's infected. Starting from stomach, because definitely it's an enterovirus, it's going to the gut, but even in blood, pancreas, liver, heart, so every organ is getting infected with this. So this is the symbols. You can see the rashes in the foot, and sometimes it becomes spas formation if there's bacterial infection on those. And this is the distribution of how EB71 and CD4A, CD4E, A6. Yeah. So the prevalence of this. Children are affected with different serotypes are shown here. The main point, so this is from India, like 2010 to 2012, but there is no other report after that. They should do more serotyping and make sure what is more prevalent. But there is no vaccine in this. Same like D68. D68 is a more than non-polio enteroviruses. It also affects the children. And the symptoms is also similar, but here is a low respiratory illness this happens. And serial symptoms like losing, so it's more affecting your lung areas. There is also acute fleximalitis or like weakness in the muscles and all those difficult swallowing in things and like asymmetry. So only things are like precautionary, like as I mentioned, like some of the diseases we can control by ourselves if we take proper actions. Like here, the transmission is happening through all those saliva, nasal sputum, cough, sneezing, touching the surface. So if your virus is coming out from all those areas, the children's always mixing together, play together. So there is easy way to get from one children to other by these groups. Only those are the precautions, as we all know, like COVID, wash your hands, clean the surface, those basic things, and that's only actually helping us. There is no antiviral either, so, but this is still emerging. There is no vaccines, there is no drugs, but it is always present. It does not cause lethality, but it is there. So only if you can just follow this kind of things, everybody's household stuff, so that can stop those transmission. And I mean, only the point is like preventing the transmission is on. If my child is sick, I should allow my child staying home, not to wait until the phase stage is slow. And then, so. Okay, that's done. Next, West Nile again.
You not change that slide?
Right, it's another folder. So West Nile, we talked about dengue. It's the same family. West Nile virus. It's flavivirus, and it's also single-stranded positive sense RNA, and it's a very small virus. You cannot see. There are 1,300 new invasive disease cases and 130 deaths annually happening in the United States. Mostly it is the older people and immunocompromised people with a higher risk, they are having this problem. There is no vaccines or therapies, as I mentioned, and mosquito control is the things because it's also Aedes group, Aedes aegypti, and so these are the mosquitoes are responsible for. West Nile is not there in India, but Aedes species in India. So as I mentioned, like the deep travel and all those, who knows? I mean, maybe 2 years from now or so, India is also facing the West Nile. So you can see the color-coded area showing the incidence, and you can show there's more darker areas and more incidence. So this is the area where the mosquito is more prevalent. This is the Texas region. Michigan is right here. This is the Michigan area. This is Colorado. This is mostly, I should say, this is California. And yeah, this is New Mexico is right here. So that area of Wyoming, this area is more common. This is Nevada. So that's the area of more prevalence of this disease. And you can see here, mostly it is also dependent on when the mosquito is breeding, right? So you can see the January, February, when it is very cold, a mosquito cannot do anything too much. But this is the summer area, right? Summer, there are a lot of sometimes rains and mosquito breeding is happening, and you can see the incidence rate is also high. And so it's more seasonal thing. So we always say like when I was in Louisiana is a lot of West Nile disease, West Nile virus, and we say West Nile, oh, it's in the backyard because the backyard is the mosquitoes. So just stand there, you can get West Nile. So and also because that time people go to go outside in the backyard, play too much. Mosquitoes are there, so it's easy to get bite and get the virus. So this is kind of cycle happens. They say horse is another source which the virus stay, but the mosquito is a kind of transmitting vector. So, and also those are the birds. They are also transmits or maybe acts as a reservoir. So they may circulate within. They don't kill those horses. The horse does not die due to the virus, but they can be a reservoir and store those viruses somehow. And when the person in the backyard and doing something, backyard work or something, the mosquito bite and it goes to the humans. So that's the cycle of West Nile. And these are the species like Eculex. Those are the mosquito species which are more prevalent. So it's a immuno-invasive disease. What it does, so when it bites, so it is the Darwin's layer. The keratinocytes are there, Langerhans cells is there. So Langerhans is another antigen-presenting cells. It's similar like dendritic cells. So the virus taken by those cells, and then they cross the dermis area, and then go to the lymph node. And once they go to the lymph node, then in between the virus is also multiplying. And once go to the lymph node, then it goes to the blood, because the bloodstream is flowing from the lymph node to everywhere. And then it's go everywhere, all the cells, and then as it targets to the T cells, macrophage interacts with the CD4, CD8 cells, so there is more chances of production of antigen-specific T cells and memory T cells, and also when it interacts with antigen-beta T cells, interacts with the B cells, it produces more antibodies. So that phase, this is happening, and in between when lymph node is going through. It also interacts with different inflammatory cells, macrophage, neutrophils, those are inflammatory cells. So there's more inflammation happens. So there's an adaptive immune response, which you call B and T cells mediated response happening when once it's crossed the lymph node and goes to the blood. And the post-immune response, this is actually more innate. So it's a fundamental idea. Like when you get any infections, whether it is a bacteria or virus, body starts first innate. Innate means it's a naive thing. It's always there. Body fights. Which cells fight? Those are the cells. NK cells, gamma delta T cells, ILCs. People say innate-like cells. ILCs, there are a lot of ILCs 1, 2, 3. So these are the cells for fight. They don't care whether it is a virus, a bacteria, or fungus or all. So they come. They come and fight. Neutrophil is another innate function cell. They produce a lot of cytokines, chemokines, those things, but when they cannot do anything, but basically adaptive immune response comes very late. And that's also induced some part by innate cells. So adaptive stay longer. Innate come and goes. Adaptive stays longer and maybe throughout your lifespan. Like I said, measles titer antibody. You still have antibody titer against measles. They are protected from measles if there is an outbreak tomorrow. But who is providing the support? It's the B cells, and they live longer. Those called plasma cells, which lives in our bone marrow, and they are very functional cells, and they live longer. So same like West Nile virus, if they produce good T cell and B cell memory cells, they live longer and they protect you from next West Nile virus infections. But there are other factors are also important, which play like age-related functions, as we all know, like genetic variations and all these things. But this virus also goes to the brain. So what happens, once the virus is in the blood, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So our brain and our body system has a protective cover, which is called blood-brain barrier. Probably you have heard before, or maybe not first time. So if the virus, and virus is very small, they can cross those barrier and go to the brain. So if they go to the brain, it causes encephalitis, means inflammation of the brain. That means you may die at some point, or you may have cognitive dysfunction, you cannot recognize people, you cannot be blind, and so many things happen. Encephalitis as a huge thing. Its consequences are big. So what happened, some of the patients, not everybody, Like, some people like, I am not good, but, Dr. Reddy may have, good immune system, he control it, nothing happens. But Baki, I'm very susceptible. My virus cross the blood-brain barrier, which is a protective area. It went to the brain and I may supply this and I'm dying to it. Or it may hamper some of the part of my organ, maybe my memory function, maybe my limbic function, so I cannot work properly anymore. Or I have a difficulty to remember something. So that's the virus does. So it has a lot of dysfunction. So that's why it's called immunoinvasive disease. It goes to the brain. But there are a lot of immune cells involved, a lot of cytokines involved because all this inflammation is there once it's go to the brain, and that complicates all those.
How big is different from rabies?
It's so rabies is also it's an adenovirus. Rabies also do the neuroinflammation. Yes, it also causes the blood-brain barrier. Yeah. So many HIV causes blood-brain. HIV also causes encephalitis. Dengue causes hemorrhagic disease, but it also can go. Yeah, brain. So a lot of viruses can go to brain, and it causes encephalitis. Some people immune system is good; they can control earlier. They're fine.
But these two things are always like its final disease is characterized by the neuroinvasion, right?
It has
nile and rabies.
It has a more chance to go to the brain. Rabies always has more chance to go to the brain.
And it's irreversible. That you cannot do anything about.
No. It has a defect, and which part gone bad. So then people do surgery for what surgery? And even though if you remove some. People give up kind of thing, right? It's kind of mistake.
Yes, there is no intervention.
Yeah, there's no intervention, and even people who use the drugs, right? It's not all drugs can cross the blood-brain barrier. That's why some of the viruses, like for HIV, I'm saying, it goes to the brain and it stays there. Even though you're taking drugs, the drugs cannot go to the brain to kill those viruses. Because drug has also.
But I don't understand one thing. If the virus which is lost. Why blood-brain barrier? Why this drug should not? Especially because when the disease is there, the compromise.
Exactly. So it causes like a blood-brain barrier in the head as a breakage, but you never know. Maybe the platelets. It's not like that. So but the virus is smart enough to went in, but as it induces more inflammation, so cytokines, neutrophil, they went in. They went to there is some problem, like there's a water leakage. What happens? So the people want to block it, right? So same like neutrophil comes in and try to block it. No, I have to protect this area because it's damaged. So that's happened. So the drugs cannot go in. Very few. There are a lot of studies on how you can make a drug that can cross the blood-brain barrier, but it's still ongoing studies. So you can see there are a lot of disease manifestations. The major is that you can see those kind of rashes here. There's a lot of rashes and meningitis. This is the neuroinvasive forms. You have a headache, neck, stiffness, those things. Movement disorder, what they say, like and then seizures. You can have those things. Acute flaccid myelitis. What that means is like you have motor neuron dysfunctions, so you cannot walk properly because it's epilepsy. So they categorize based on how we can diagnose. So you have a disease, if you are immunocompromised, if it is yes, then you do those RT-PCR and IgM. IgM comes first, like immunoglobulin M comes first, then IgG comes. Uh, so you can take those fluids, CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, which is passed through the blood-brain barrier. People, you can take those from the patients and do the PCR and say, oh, you're positive with that, but only you do when that's sorry, the human patients is immunocompromised. But if it's not, just do the IgM, and then if you see detected, then you do repeat it. Make sure this is really there. If it is not, then it is do again, and the same way, like all the steps, like if you confirm, then do neutralizer. So basically, you're doing PCR and immunoglobulin tests, neutralizing antibody tests. So there are a lot of aspects to make sure, okay, I have the disease. So Westman law definitely produces some antibodies, as I mentioned, like a couple slides ago, it's a T cell and B cell mediated. So if you see the B cell producing immunoglobulin, B cell producing neutralizing antibodies there. So that is the way we confirmatory diagnosis. There are a lot of preventive measures. I'm not it's too heavy slides for read, but the point is like in mosquito control, and then use the repellents. Human West Nile virus vaccine they have done, but it's in preclinical stage. And we have also published long ago on West Nile vaccine. We did HSV one by vector vector. I think we published like 2017 or 18. It was very effective. We went to the next step. Still in preclinical, we have papers on those. So we did a lot of studies on this, especially recombinant vaccine studies. But it's all in preclinical. There is nothing in clinical level yet. And there are some monoclonal antibodies available, which are also can trade, but it's not that very common. Oh, I like to show those videos. Can you? There's a YouTube
Can you
video.
have a continuous break for coffee?
Yeah. After that? Yeah. Yeah. There's a YouTube at the bottom. Clarence. So that's it for this talk.
You break it's complete process.
No, we have some.
Yes, it is. We can have coffee and come back. Coffee.
Yeah.
That's coffee.